I don't know what to think of this, man. They're 4 points out. They haven't been this close this late in a really long time, but I keep getting my hopes up, and they missed the playoffs by like 1 point. I just don't know if they're going to let me down. Shh, no words. Just enjoy it.
You ready? Big news. What? Whoosh. Seriously?
No pigs yet.
What? What was he doing? Wow. Bring him on. Beautiful.
Can they? Leafs win 5-4 against Montreal in Montreal, making up for the couple times where they got shut out. Things started off pretty rough though, the Habs controlling the pressure of the game and Reimer having to come up with some huge saves. But even the statue can't stop everything. Hammerlick with the shot, Halpern with the tip, can't stop it, 1-0 Canadians. Enter Phil the Thrill in what I think might have been his best game as a Maple Leaf. First goal, power play, snipe high blocker on Alex Auld, tie game. Might I remind you that coming into this game, the Leafs are 14-4-1 when Phil Kessel scores. Second goal, also on the power play, strips the puck behind the net, sneaks in front, and somehow it beats Alex Auld. He's got to have that one. Leafs up 2-1. Glad you asked. Coming into this game, the Leafs are 3-1 when Phil Kessel scores twice, meaning he's had 5 2-goal games this season, this being the 5th. 59 seconds later, Lebda, the glorious feed, wide open, snipes it on Alex Auld. His first goal as a Maple Leaf. The Leafs have a 3-1 lead. And listen, Leafs fans, we haven't exactly had the best relationship with Brett Lebda so far. His stats, yeah, that was a shot he had to take, placed it perfectly, just roofs it, and he puts the Leafs up 3-1. His first as a Leaf, but even his biggest critics got to give him props on that one. But we saw this in the playoffs last spring. The Habs have resolve. Less than 4 minutes in, on the power play, Subban to Kostitsin to Camilleri, back of the net. And just 20 seconds later, Hammerlick to Gionta to Wisniewski, blasts it. It's a tie game. Also on the power play. And Leafs fans, Habs fans, let's come together for a second and agree on something. Holy crap penalties. 15 minors assessed in this game, 7 for the Leafs and 8 for the Habs. I think the Habs lead the NHL in petty scrums that lead to nothing. This isn't an insult at all. I think it's a skill. The Habs, one of the biggest beacon teams in the NHL. And that's not me saying they're wusses or they wouldn't take someone up on a fight. It's to get the opponent off their game and try to draw a penalty. Exhibit A, Dion Phaneuf 8 seconds into the game. But for the most part, Leafs not taking the bait. Mike Commissaric giving Plekanec a little bit of this. Habs fans, I want to know how you feel about this as the trade deadline approaches. Chris Neil? Not saying Neil specifically, but just looking down Montreal's lineup, they could use a guy like that. But moving on, going with what I said just a minute ago, Leafs on the power play again. Tyler Bozak with this crazy, no-look pass behind him to Phil Kessel behind the net. And from behind the Habs net, Alex Auld pulled for Carey Price at this point, by the way. Phil Kessel sets up shop and builds Phil Kessel's Tasty Feed Emporium. Kessel apparently a big fan of the Peniella Smirnoff at Real Sports. They put a little bit of salsa on it, feed it in front of Tyler Bozak. He takes it a shot and a little bit of gabagool. I'd like to apologize for that poor excuse of an Italian accent. But the good news, with that goal, Tyler Bozak snaps a huge drought and the Leafs are ahead 4-3. The bad news, Phil Kessel can never actually open an Italian restaurant because there is no letter K in the Italian alphabet. No J, no K, no X, no Y. The more you know. Just 4.5 minutes into the third, Lebda, how about this guy with the feed to Kessel behind the net again to Bozak in front again, goal again. And Brett Lebda, just 1 point, and that's an assist in 27 games with the Leafs, scores a goal and an assist for 2 points in 1 game. Monkey off the back? Hope so. By the way, you'll never guess this monkey's name. I know, right? Dying minutes of the game, the Leafs and James Reimer have to come up with some big saves. And with about 2:30 to go in the game, banging away at it, Max Pacioretty finds a way to flip it up over Reimer in the net. Oh, poo. But dying seconds of the game, less than 30 seconds, who's out there? Like I said before, Phil Kessel. But the all-star in that last shift, scrumming in the Canadian zone. 3 guys on him. They can't get the puck off him. Freddie Sjustrom. And as a result, the Habs can't pull Price. They can't get the extra guy out. They can't get organized. And the Leafs end up winning 5-4, putting themselves 4 points out of a playoff spot. Their next game at home against the Pittsburgh Penguins, who just acquired Neil Niskanen for Alex Goligoski and Alex Kovalev for a pack of gum. And then the very next night, on the road, not exactly the easiest task in the world, Leafs have to take on Atlanta, who they just passed in the standings. And with the trade deadline on Monday, not saying it's gonna happen, but it could, the Leafs could be in the 8th and final playoff spot by the trade deadline. Or they could be twice as far out as they are now. And as hot as the Leafs have been, as much as the fans want them in the playoffs, they're not going to win them all. They're playing back-to-backs and there's travel involved. Ugh. Yeah, but they're pro athletes. They should be able to deal with it. Thanks for the information, guy who points out obvious things, but they're playing against other pro athletes. You too. So I'm going to end this very simply with 3 questions for you. 1, was that Phil Kessel's best game as a Leaf? 2, do you think that game was a sign of things to come for A, Tyler Bozak, and B, Brett Lebda? I'm going to start calling him Brett Lebstrom, or not. So add me on leavspace.com, add me as a friend or like my page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter at Steve_Dangle, and I leave you with the 3rd and final question. Can they?